There's a character who gets hit more than almost any other figure in 90s animation. Slapped, punched, kicked, thrown, rejected, humiliated, knocked out cold, sometimes all in the same episode. And yet, every single time, he gets back up. No resentment, no retaliation, no bitterness. He just smiles, brushes himself off, and tries again. Most people saw the joke. Almost nobody saw what was actually underneath it. Because here's the thing, this character was never just a punchline. And once you understand what was really being built inside that cartoon, you're not going to be able to watch it the same way ever again. His name was Johnny Bravo.
Do the monkey with me. Come on. Hey there, lady. Yeah, whatever.
And on the surface, the premise was simple. Ridiculously muscular guy, perfect hair, absolute confidence. He approaches women, they reject him, sometimes violently, and the audience laughs. That's the loop. That was supposed to be the whole story. Except, it wasn't. Because buried inside that loop, if you watch carefully enough, is a question that the show never directly answers. A question that becomes stranger and more interesting the longer you sit with it. And that question is this: why does he keep going? Not in the way you're thinking, not the shallow answer because he's confident or because he's oblivious. That's the surface. That's what the show wants you to think. But underneath that, there's something more specific. Something that separates Johnny Bravo from almost every other character built around the same archetype. And to get there, we have to go back to where this all started. It was 1997. Cartoon Network was in the middle of something nobody had quite seen before. The channel was young, it was hungry, and it was actively looking for shows that felt different. Shows that took a swing at something. And a young animator named Van Partible handed them a pilot for a character he'd been developing for years. A character built around a very specific cultural image. The Elvis influence is obvious once you see it. The hair, the swagger, the self-assurance, all of it traces back to a very particular American mythology, the cool guy. The guy who walks into the room and assumes without question that everyone wants to be around him. Van Partible wasn't mocking that mythology. He was doing something more interesting. He was transplanting it, taking that icon of 1950s cool and dropping it into a late 1990s world that had very different ideas about what cool meant. And the friction that created, that's where the comedy lived. But here's what's easy to miss. Van Partible wasn't designing Johnny to be unlikable. That's a crucial distinction. The character had warmth built in from the very beginning. He helped people.
No, there's a 900-pound gorilla on the loose.
Now hold on, Missy. A gorilla. 900 pounds. On the loose? Ma'am, I'd be more than happy to help you find your gorilla. He's sharing a soda right now.
My Fluffy!
Oh, mama. Run away, weenie dog! Wait, if you give me 20 minutes, I'll run down to a Turner Toys and get you something really happening.
10 minutes. We've got the rest of the block to cover.
Right, 10 minutes.
He genuinely cared about his mother. He had a relationship with a little kid named Little Susie that read, if you paid attention, almost like a big brother dynamic. There was softness there that kept getting overshadowed by the bigger, louder, funnier stuff. So the question is, why did the warmth matter? Why put it in at all? Because if Johnny was just arrogant and oblivious, you could turn the show off after one episode. The warmth is load-bearing. Without it, none of the rest of it works. Now, let's talk about the violence, because this is where things start to get genuinely interesting and genuinely strange. In the world of the show, Johnny Bravo gets hit constantly. Women hit him, strangers hit him, animals hit him. Forces of nature seem to single him out specifically. He gets launched through walls. He gets dropped from heights. He gets thrown, bitten, stung, crushed. The physical punishment he absorbs across 4 seasons is, if you actually catalog it, remarkable. And here is the thing that nobody, almost nobody, ever talked about at the time. He never hits back. Not once. Not toward a woman, not even close. Now, in a cartoon, you might say, well, that's just the formula. The strong guy gets beaten up by everyone else. That's a classic comedic inversion. And you'd be right that it's a formula, but formulas are chosen for a reason. Someone decides to use them. And the way Johnny handles that violence, the specific manner in which he absorbs it and moves on, tells you something about what the creators actually valued. Think about what he does after he gets hit. He doesn't escalate, he doesn't plot revenge, he doesn't even get particularly upset. He shakes it off, sometimes literally, and either helps the person who just hit him or finds someone else to talk to. The emotional reset is almost immediate. That's not how most cartoon characters work. Most cartoon characters carry grudges. Most cartoon characters have internal states that compound. Anger builds on anger. Frustration adds to frustration. Johnny's internal state doesn't compound. It resets every single time. And you have to ask, why does that feel so strange? Why does watching someone absorb rejection and move forward without resentment feel almost unsettling? Because we're not used to it. Because in real life, and in most of the stories we tell, people carry their wounds, they nurse them, they use them as evidence. Johnny doesn't. And somewhere in that choice, the show was saying something that it never quite said out loud. What you have is a character who, underneath all the comedy, has a genuinely functional ethical core. He doesn't harm, he helps when he can, he doesn't obsess over the people who reject him, he doesn't treat rejection as an injury that justifies bad behavior later. And yet, and this is the part that I keep coming back to, the show frames him as a failure, as the guy who never gets what he wants, as the punchline. Why? Why build a character with those specific qualities and then structure the whole show around him losing? There are a few possible answers, and they don't all point in the same direction. One possibility is that Van Partible and the writers were making a specific comedic choice. The gap between Johnny's self-image and his reality is the engine of the comedy. He thinks he's the most attractive, most charismatic man alive. The world disagrees. That gap is genuinely funny. There's nothing wrong with that reading. But there's another reading that sits right underneath it, and it goes like this. Maybe the show wasn't actually making fun of Johnny. Maybe it was making fun of the world that kept rejecting him. Stay with me here, because here's what I want you to think about. Strip away the hair, strip away the muscles, strip away the catchphrases. Look at what Johnny Bravo actually does behaviorally across 4 seasons of television. He approaches people directly and honestly. He doesn't manipulate, he doesn't deceive, he doesn't construct elaborate schemes to trick anyone into liking him. He says what he thinks, sometimes with more confidence than is warranted, but always with transparency. You always know exactly what Johnny wants. He maintains his self-respect without requiring external validation to sustain it. Other characters' opinions of him are interesting to him, but they don't define him. He doesn't collapse when rejected. He doesn't inflate when praised. There's a baseline stability there that, again, we don't often see. He's physically capable of violence and never uses it against anyone who has physically attacked him first. And even then, his response is usually comedic deflection rather than genuine aggression. And he keeps going. Not obsessively, not desperately. He moves on from individual rejections quickly. But he keeps engaging with the world. He stays in motion. He stays curious. He stays willing. Now, does that sound like a failure to you? Or does it sound like something we've been misreading for 25 years? Because I think the deeper question, the one the show was never quite brave enough to ask directly, is why we laugh at those qualities when they show up in a certain package. Why persistence reads as pathetic, why directness reads as oblivious, why resilience reads as stupidity. That's not a question about Johnny Bravo. That's a question about us. There's a version of this show that didn't have the warmth. A version where Johnny Bravo was genuinely aggressive, genuinely threatening, genuinely unaware that his behavior was harmful. That show would have been unwatchable. It wouldn't have lasted 4 seasons. Nobody would remember it fondly. The warmth is what kept it alive, and the warmth was a choice. But here's what makes that choice complicated. The show still positioned him as a loser,
It still made his fundamental characteristic, his approach to social interaction, the source of the joke. And there's a question buried in that framing that I don't think the creators ever fully answered. Is Johnny Bravo the joke, or is the situation Johnny Bravo is in the joke? Because those are two completely different shows. In one version, we're laughing at a man who doesn't know how to read social situations. He's the object of the comedy. His failure is the point. And we feel comfortably superior to him because we would never be so oblivious. In the other version, we're laughing at a world that has constructed impossibly specific rules about who gets to be desirable, and we're watching a man who refuses to internalize those rules, who keeps operating as if his genuine interest in other people is enough, get crushed by them over and over, while remaining fundamentally intact. And in that version, the comedy is darker. Because in that version, what we're really laughing at is the gap between what we say we want in other people and what we actually reward. I'm not sure Van Partible intended both readings, but I'm also not sure he didn't, because the show is built in a way that genuinely supports both, and that's not an accident. Shows that last don't usually survive on one-dimensional jokes. They survive because something underneath the surface is doing real work. Think about what it would take to be Johnny Bravo, actually. Not the cartoon version, the real psychological version, the version where the traits are real. To maintain genuine confidence without external reinforcement, to be capable of helping other people, not because you expect something in return, but because it's simply what you do. To experience rejection, repeated, sometimes humiliating rejection, and to not convert that rejection into resentment. To not punish the next person for what the last person did. To stay open, to stay interested, to keep going. Those are not easy things. Those are actually some of the hardest things. And we packaged them inside a joke. We made them the source of comedy rather than the source of admiration. We took a character built on those qualities and we framed his story as one continuous failure. Why did that feel natural? Why did that framing feel right? I think it's because the qualities I just described, in isolation, without the hair and the muscles and the catchphrases, are actually admirable. And admirable things are harder to laugh at. So the show gave us permission to laugh by making the container ridiculous, by making the hair impossible, the muscles cartoonish. It put all the genuine qualities inside a shape that gave us distance from it. And maybe that was the only way those qualities could survive on television in 1997. Maybe a straightforwardly admirable version of Johnny Bravo, a man who helped people, held no grudges, never lashed out, and kept moving forward, would have been too earnest, too sincere. The late 90s had very little patience for sincerity without irony. So Van Partible gave it irony. He built the sincerity underneath the joke. And for a generation of viewers, it landed, even if they couldn't quite name what was landing. Remember the question I asked at the beginning, why does he keep going? I said the shallow answer was confidence. I said the real answer was underneath that. And I've been building toward it this whole time. Johnny Bravo keeps going because the alternative, giving up, becoming bitter, retaliating, closing off, costs more than rejection does. And somewhere in his character, that calculus is already solved. He didn't arrive at it through philosophy. He didn't work through it consciously. It's just how he's built. The world hits him, and he doesn't store the hit. He releases it. And then he's available again. Available to help, available to try, available to be present with the next person in front of him as if the last one never happened. That is an unusual thing to build into an animated character. It's an unusual thing, full stop. And the show disguised it as stupidity. It let us read his emotional resilience as obliviousness. It let us read his persistence as delusion. Because the moment we recognized what those qualities actually were, the joke would stop working. We'd have to sit with something more uncomfortable than a punchline. We'd have to sit with the fact that the character we spent 4 seasons laughing at might have been doing something right all along. There's one more thing, and this is the part I keep coming back to. Johnny Bravo never wins in the way the show defines winning. He doesn't get the girl, he doesn't get the recognition. The world never quite confirms what he believes about himself. But here's what the show, maybe accidentally, maybe not, showed us anyway. He never becomes someone else. He never lets the losing change him into something smaller or meaner or more closed off. After every season, after every rejection, after every episode of being hit and thrown and dismissed, he is still fundamentally the same person he was at the beginning. And I don't know what to do with that. I'm not sure whether that's inspiring or tragic. I'm not sure whether his consistency is strength or just the architecture of a cartoon character who was never allowed to grow. Maybe the most honest thing the show ever did was refuse to answer that question. Maybe it knew that some things are both at the same time, inspiring and tragic, generous and deluded, real and ridiculous, and that the only honest response is to keep laughing while you figure out which one it is. Johnny Bravo kept going. He always kept going. And somewhere in that, somewhere in the gap between the joke and the thing underneath the joke, there's a question about what we actually value and whether we'd recognize it if it didn't look exactly the way we expected. I'll leave that with you.